Have you ever wondered why some people find healing in therapy, while others seem to struggle despite their best efforts? In the world of trauma response and recovery, this question is more common than you might think. Many begin therapy with hope, motivated by the promise of positive change. But for some, progress feels out of reach, even after weeks or months of sessions. So, what makes the difference? The answer lies in a distinction that's rarely discussed: the difference between therapy-aligned and therapy-resistant trauma responses. Therapy-resistant trauma often develops when traumatic events occur during the earliest years of life, or when trauma is so extended that it actually changes how a person's body and mind operate. These deep-rooted changes can make standard therapy approaches less effective. Why? Because traditional therapy relies on helping people shift between feelings of threat and safety. But for those with therapy-resistant trauma, the concept of safety isn't just hard to find. It may not exist at all within their neurophysiology. Without a genuine sense of safety, the healing process can stall. This can lead to two common outcomes. People might say or do what's expected just to maintain support, or they might retreat further into isolation. Both are reactions to trauma that conventional therapy may not address fully. Understanding these differences is the first step toward more effective support. Therapists and clients alike can benefit from recognizing that some trauma runs deeper, requiring specialized care and patience. Whether your journey is smooth or challenging, know that you're not alone. Healing is possible, and it begins with understanding your unique story. If therapy feels tough, it's not a sign of failure, it's a signal to seek new ways forward, through participation, communication, and interaction rather than shutting down or by simply complying. Healing from trauma is about the journey to a destination. Outcomes are built rather than offered. They take time, patience, and understanding on all sides.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening all, it's Bear here. And in today's video, I want to start to unpack and explore over the next several videos why some traumatic experiences and the responses to them are therapy resistant. What creates that resistance? And why does the way the Western world and the modern world approach therapy and these complex traumas have such little success in the long term? As I said, this is not a criticism of therapy, but it's more the depth of understanding needed on all sides of the equation, the person as well as the practitioner, around key areas that create a fundamental resistance to therapeutic interventions and support. Now, for us to understand that, the reason it is so important is what I firmly believe is one of the key pieces of one of the key missing pieces in the puzzle of trauma healing is the person who has experienced it needs to participate within the process of healing. We need to step into and start to take control, and rather than hand over, it is so easy to just hand over to somebody in perceived dominance or power, a therapist, somebody with more knowledge than we have. But in reality, when you look at complex trauma, multiple type, multiple event, and over protracted periods of time, or early childhood, very early childhood, developmental trauma, the instinct to do that actually feeds our trauma responses. And it puts the context that the therapist is in a place that can also feed the power that we gave those that harmed us when we were little or when we were being harmed. And that is a very challenging hurdle to get past. One of the other reasons why I feel that we need to participate is we need to know what is going on. We need to learn and rewrite our internal language. A term that I'm going to raise in the coming videos is interoception, our internal dialogue, the pathways of information that our brain and body use to function and to create our survival states. We need to understand our own unique internal language and where it came from. One of the first and most key questions I asked when I started to understand why everything a therapist years ago was telling me to do didn't work came down to where did my trauma response come from? What information did it draw upon to build the structure of my survival state? And that's what led me into exploring epigenetics and ancestral information and everything else. And being an adoptee, that is also a stronger need for me as well, trying to find an understanding around my biological history. But hidden within that was a key understanding that helped me not feel so isolated, because all the different therapists I explored or tried or spoke with just couldn't get there. Another key understanding that I'll go into in the next couple of videos, is therapy needs us to be able to transfer to a different track, a track of more positive responses and more positive engagement, more positive feelings, and the ability to look at things in a different way. But so many of us that have gone through complex trauma and protracted or prolonged traumatic experiences, especially in the developmental years, that other track no longer never existed in the first place. We only have a single track because our entire engagement in the world developed during trauma. So this is why I have found it is so critical for us that have gone through it to gain the understanding for ourselves, because we are the ones that are going to have to build a new track. A therapist can't do it for us. Handing our power over to a therapist will only lead to the same outcomes we all go through all the time, is we can't quite get to where they need us to be. So through all of this, as I said, over the next several videos, and this one, I want to start to build some of the understandings as to why. One of the key ways to be able to create this understanding is we need to create a way to process or, create categories and ways of interpreting, giving what we're observing within ourselves and our responses and our behavior context. Now, the way I simplify things down is by creating groupings. And for our own being, we start with the first grouping is our own body. Our body responses, fight, flight, freeze, the way our digestive system behaves, and all the sensations and feelings we have leading up to our stronger responses to threat. Our anxiety, our insomnia, digestive issues, chronic pain, or anything around our physical body, and how it relates and interacts with our environment and its aftermath. Another category is neurological, our nervous system. All those pathways and the language that our body uses to interpret our surroundings, and how our responses and our triggered responses become embedded so easily. And the third category is our story, our narrative, the way we pull everything together and function day to day, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we explain things to ourselves, the way we justify things to ourselves, that internal dialogue that is more cognitive based, but it's also what we pursue, our deficits and so forth, and all the different aspects around the interpretation of who we are and how we relate to the world. Another key understanding around this is how all three groupings are connected and work with each other. To give a simple example, if we're engaging in a therapy process, our story is at the forefront. But that story is going to feed from our interpretation from what the therapist is saying into our nervous system, which is going to translate how we're interpreting what's being saying and how we're feeling and the environment we're in. And that's going to also feed into our body, our triggered responses, and how our body's going to process and what we're going to go through over the coming days and weeks as a result of those moments. This interconnectedness is the part that I want to help you guys realize, one, understanding how important it is, but also how helpful it is to actually be able to become aware of these processes and start to take the reins of the horse that is running rampant through them. Yes, I know that this is a lot of information that we're going to try to disseminate. But to help us even further with that, take a moment and step back and observe you. Just where you are right now watching this video. Take 3 breaths in, 3 breaths out, and just settle yourself for a moment and just step back and observe you. All the different layers that make up who you are, the different sensations you might be feeling right at this moment, and the different places within your body those feelings go and come from. Now, to take this into a context where we can start to create a floor plan to interpret all of this information, to observe ourselves and to actually make sense of it. Picture all those feelings that you're feeling now and the different parts of you that they're coming from and they're going to. You know, something may come from a sensation outside that goes straight to the pit of your stomach. It has a journey to follow. Picture it as a floor plan of a house. This analogy was something that a friend of mine helped me to work on as a way of explaining this. I view things slightly differently, but I have a cultural base that I feed things from. But in a more westernized or modernized context, look at your own body and being as this house. All the different rooms and the layout of the house. Each room has its own function. Each room has its own requirements. Each room has its own place within the ecology that is the house. And the house, how that house works together, is the ecology of home, who we are. I find this analogy as an excellent way, and we'll be using this analogy over several videos, as a way of exploring the different components of this internal understanding that I really feel we need to have. As I said, we need to participate with a therapist, or we need to participate in our own healing. And to do that, we need to actually know what is going on within us and why. By using the analogy of a home and even creating a mind map on a piece of poster board and having a notebook for each room, create and labeling each room as different parts of yourself. One room can be digestive, one room can be, sleep. Everything related in the sleep goes into that book. Your kitchen, nourishment, what you bring in, how you interpret, and so forth and so forth. It's a way of compiling to create a picture, and also a way of disseminating all that information into something you're able to process and understand easily. It also helps with a very key part of working within a therapeutic structure, is the ability to accurately articulate and explain what we're feeling to another. As I said, one of the abilities that we gain, and that one of the main reasons for this first video and this next series, is when we start to actually gain these aha moments and these understandings of why am I feeling this way and what's causing it, is we demystify our responses to threat and our survival state. And that takes a nice big chunk of anxiety away. When I know that I have a sensation where I'm struggling to breathe because of, a threat trigger, and I'm in an anxiety state and my airways start to trigger and close, I know that it's nothing but a threat response. And the ways and techniques that I can work with and develop, that I've used myself, for myself, and created myself for myself over years, I know can help lead me out of that. When we start to demystify, things start to fall into place. When we learn to articulate, things start to fall into place. And we can start to step out of being stuck cowering in a corner, a slave to our own responses to threat. And we can start to take back the control that we need to steer the horse that we're riding through life. A weird analogy, but it's the only way I can explain a sensation that once you start to feel it, When you start to get this place where, no, I realize I can change some core fundamental structures that normally shut me down, the power, the empowerment that you feel is so meaningful. It's a moment that so many of us struggle to reach, but when we get there, we know we can do it. We can create more of them. And that's one of the goals of my videos in this channel, is to help create that base so that you can empower yourself. You can demystify your own responses to trauma. You can gain the knowledge and insights so that you can articulate to those that are close to you what is going on. You can build the connections to have the co-regulation and the support so that you can start to come out of freeze states and shutdown states and survival and start to engage with life and the world and the environment around you to make the changes to be safe, to release, and to heal. Now, I really hope you guys understand the importance of this. Like I said in the beginning of this video, one of the key reasons some traumatic experiences are resistant to therapy is because the only way we're going to get there is we have to participate with the therapist. We have to have the ability to articulate to where we know they understand. We have to have the ability to ask the questions that we need to and understand what the therapy is trying to guide us towards and work on, for so many of us, to build that structure. Because like I said earlier in the video, I've gone to therapists and they say, well, we need to bring more love in your life. Well, if my nervous system has never experienced love, or my nervous system experiences love in a more violent sense, because that's the term that was used when I was harmed, that's not going to work. And we need to be able to articulate that and understand that ourselves to be able to work on altering how our body and nervous system interprets it, change and add to our narrative or our story, so that we can work with a therapy model to build a path out of survival. As always, I love you guys' comments and feedback. Please be mindful, please be safe, please be respectful. I thank you for your support for the channel, and I will see you all next time.